Hello and welcome to the special edition of Global Business on CGTN. I'm Guanxin in Beijing. Today marks the 5th anniversary of the announcement of establishing a free trade port in China's southern province of Hainan. Over the past few years, Hainan has rapidly emerged as a global trade hub, with its trade in goods and services skyrocketing and the actual use of foreign capital surpassing that of the previous 30 years. In the next half an hour, my colleagues, including Wang Tianyu, who is currently on the ground covering the Consumer Expo in Hainan, Giles Gibson, our reporter in Italy, the guest country of honor at this year's Expo, and Wang Dan, the chief China economist of Hang Seng Bank, will join me and share their insights on the new opportunities brought by the China International Consumer Products Expo, and also take a close look at the profound impact of the Hainan Free Trade Port. And let's start with our Tianyu, who has been covering the ongoing expo. Tianyu, tell us what have been the main highlights this year.
Well, Guanxin, this is the third time the Consumer Products Expo is being held here in Hainan. And I have reported all the 3 times of the event, so I can tell you that this year's event is larger both in area and scale. The exhibition area has been expanded to 120,000 square meters, which equals to around 17 football courts, and it is 20% higher than that of last year. The expo itself serves as a trading platform for global high-quality consumer goods, and over 1,000 new products from more than 300 brands have already made or will make their debuts here. And there are also a lot of global purchasing agents coming to this event to cut deals. But from my personal experience, I want to tell you that the Hainan Expo is one of the most fun events I've ever covered. In the venue, you would always see many people gather to watch performances, stay in long queue to try to get some nice and free foreign food and drinks, and play some games to try to win some gifts. So here's one thing that I want to show you. So this is Expo Passport. So a lot of people get this in the service center in the expo, and you can see there are a lot of stamps inside. So you take this passport and you go to the booth you're interested in, and you can ask them to stamp on your passport. And if you collect enough the stamps, there are different brands here, and if you get enough of them, you can go to the gift center to redeem some very nice souvenirs. So you can see people come here to enjoy, to have fun, to relax. Back to you, Guanxin.
Indeed, the event is joined by so many countries that makes it a truly global event. And Tianyu, today marks the 5th year of the announcement of building Hainan into a free trade port. Give us some information about its development in the past 5 years.
5 years ago today, which was April the 13th in 2018, China announced a decision to support Hainan in developing the tropical island into a pilot free trade zone, which means it will gradually become a free trade port. Speaking about the free trade, the most important thing is tariff. Over the past 5 years, more than 180 policies and measures on tariff exemptions and trade and investment facilitation have gone into effect. So how do Hainan Expo attendees view the free trade port policy? My colleagues has interviewed one of them. Take a listen.
Many international brands have strengthened strategic cooperation with us at the Expo. This year, our exhibition highlights new products, new trends, and new lifestyles. With the boost from the Free Trade Port, we're also promoting the Tmall Global New World Factory in Haikou. It expands cross-border cooperation of the industrial chain, which involves bonded imports and processing for retail and omni-channel sales. We believe the project will be fully implemented soon.
As of January this year, Hainan has exempted nearly 3 billion yuan, which was over $400 billion of import duties for the goods subject to zero tariffs, as well as for the processing trade. By the end of 2025, Hainan Free Trade Port is scheduled to initiate independent customs operations throughout the province. So there's definitely way more to look forward to on this island. Back to you, Guanxin.
Indeed, and we'll delve into the new progress later in the program. Thank you for all that information, our Wang Tianyu in Haikou. Now, since 2018, Hainan has been positioned as a new model for economic reform, opening up, and innovation. Let's take a close look at what the local government has done to make Hainan a critical hub for global trade and investment over the past 5 years. Here's a look at how those free trade policies are paying off in Hainan province. The island's economy grew 5.3% every year on average since 2018, slightly outpacing the national GDP growth, thanks to a boom in foreign trade. Since the island became a free trade port, goods and services trade maintained double-digit growth, while foreign direct investment surged by more than 60% every year. Trade accounts for about 1/3 of Hainan's economy, double from 5 years ago. Tourism is also more of a pillar industry. In the first quarter alone, Hainan's tourism sector registered nearly 27 million visits. Tourism revenue rose 25% on year to 53 billion yuan, or $7.7 billion US. To understand more about the development of the Hainan Free Trade Port, we're joined by Wang Dan, Chief Economist of Hang Seng Bank China. Thank you for joining us, Dan. So what are your observations about the China International Consumer Products Expo this year? What momentum do you expect it to provide for China's opening up efforts?
This expo looks quite crowded, and it's one of the largest events for consumers this year. And what I immediately observe is that there is a number of varieties of participants and products, and showing some of the new trends of green transition and the upgrade of quality of goods. So we've noticed that there are many of the European brands that have never previously been to China before, and there are new type of luxuries and new types of household appliances that are smarter, greener, and more easily accessible. So this represents a general opportunity for the global investors to tap into the Chinese domestic consumer market.
And it's been 5 years since Hainan established itself as a global free trade port. What do you think about its progress towards this goal?
Well, ever since Hainan established this target, since then, in the past 5 years, the annual growth rate of the FDI has been increasing by more than 60% year on year. And that, by any standard, is a rapid progress. And we have seen the lowering of cost in custom clearing and in purchasing imported goods and processing different type of industrial inputs in the Hainan Island. So in the coming years, there will be more developments in terms of the preferential tax treatment and the easiness to establish R&D centers and high-end labs in agriculture or in equipment making. So for Hainan Port, this is a very good opportunity to demonstrate its capacity to be the center for the innovation-based economy.
And looking forward, how will this independent customs operation further facilitate trade flows and business operations?
Well, the biggest and the immediate benefit for businesses is the cost advantage. So for China as the manufacturing center, one big cost for most businesses running here is still the tariff cost. So we have seen this list of zero tariffs for many of the processing businesses here. And in the future, the list will only get longer. And for foreign investors, this is also one good gateway to get into China. There will be more reforms and pilot programs in order to provide better financial infrastructures, including the capital control restriction, some of the ease in that front, and also for the cross-border settlement by using more of the RMB as the channel will also be piloted in Hainan. So there's high hope that there can be more of the reform in this front.
Well, thank you very much for your analysis. Please stay with us for more discussions later in the program. And among other policies that are expected to give the Hainan Free Trade Port an edge is the planned island-wide customs closure operation by 2025. Earlier this month, the Vice Governor of Hainan Province said preparatory work has commenced for the island-wide customs closure operations. Local government officials said the necessary hardware for the operation will be put in place this year before the exercise is fully completed in 2025. So what is Hainan Customs closure operation and what kind of impact will it have on trade? Here are the details.
The island-wide closure operation means that the Hainan FTP will be more smoothly connected with the outside world, which is a higher level of opening up. Through the management of the import and export of goods with first-line liberalization and second-line control, Hainan FTP will be exempted from import duties on most imported goods. First-line liberalization means that Hainan will open up to other countries and regions outside the Chinese mainland, allowing international goods to move in and out of Hainan freely, and enabling Hainan to realize a high degree of trade freedom with the rest of the world. Second-line control means that international goods entering the Chinese mainland are still subject to domestic supervision. If goods enter the Chinese mainland, additional duties will be imposed. So, what is the impact of the operation, especially for ordinary customers? After the customs closure operation, the vast majority of imported commodities in Hainan FTP are tariff-free. Besides, goods outside the prohibited category list can be freely imported and exported. Thus, Hainan's trade with the rest of the world will be more frequent, promoting the prosperity of import and export trade. For ordinary customers, imported goods are duty-free when entering Hainan. Therefore, customers on the island can buy international goods at lower prices. In addition, Hainan will also introduce a more open visa-free policy for more countries. More foreign talents will come to Hainan for business and tourism.
And now for more on the upcoming customs closure operations in Hainan, let's cross to our reporter Giles Gibson in Italy. Hi there, Giles. China's southern Hainan province will start island-wide customs closure operations in 2025. How will that impact the trade between China and EU countries in the future?
Well, of course, the European Union is one of the biggest trading partners for China, and I'm here in southern Italy in the region of Puglia, and this part of the country is especially known for its olive oil and its olive oil products. And of course, over the last couple of decades or so, as the Chinese economy has grown, as the middle class has got bigger and bigger, things like that have just been, arriving in China at a much higher rate. Exports and imports of olive oil in China really rising from countries like Italy and Spain and Greece. Of course, what the Chinese government says is that Hainan is going to be this hub for goods arriving from all around the world because of some of its customs processes, as well as the fact that it's close to major international shipping routes. But I have to say, if you look at some of the comments that Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, made on her recent trip to China, she talked about trade between the two, between the EU and between China being extensive but complex. And that's a reflection of the fact that Europe is looking to sell some of these less controversial products, olive oil or cars from Germany, for example, going forward, but they're also being more cautious about other sort of more complex products such as semiconductors, for example.
And Giles, since you are in southern Italy, what's the outlook for China-Italy trade going forward?
Well, since 2019, Italy has had a memorandum of understanding, basically an agreement with China that it will be part of the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. But of course, the BRI generally is focused on big infrastructure projects, so bridges and train routes and that kind of thing. That's what we've seen popping up in places like Latin America and Africa. But the two countries in that memorandum of understanding, Italy and China, they agreed to sort of boost their trade overall. So that was part of that agreement that was made 4 years ago. There is, however, a question mark about whether that agreement is going to be extended. The Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni made some pretty skeptical comments about it when she was running for office. Since she's taken office, she's kind of been keeping her cards close to her chest, but we are really counting down the rest of this year to see if that agreement is going to be extended for future years.
Well, thank you for all that information. Our Giles Gibson live for us in Italy. The Hainan Expo is a chance for exporters from countries such as Malaysia to highlight and expand sales of local specialties. One of those specialty products much sought after in China are edible bird nests made from the saliva of the swiftlet species. As Ryan Mausler reports from Kuala Lumpur, demand for the bird nest is surging, but there's still plenty of room for growth.
Malaysia exports hundreds of tons of edible bird nest a year. By far the biggest market is China, where it's prized for its reputed health benefits.
Every year we will have minimum of 30% of increase Even during COVID time, there's a tremendous amount of demand from China.
China has stringent requirements for bird nest imports.
The bird nest industry is under the supervision of DVS, Department of Veterinary Service. So basically, we will always provide the quality control to ensure that the Malaysian bird nest product is at the premium quality, and also the customer definitely is safe to consume it. Apart from the biosecurity part, we also help to facilitate the trade in between Malaysia and also the targeted country, mainly China.
Currently, nearly all Malaysia's exports to China are raw bird nest, even though the country makes a vast array of bird nest products, ranging from drinks and desserts to soaps and face masks.
So we hope in the near future, more product will be getting approval, and we can export directly rather than just selling our product and made in China, which we prefer it to be made in Malaysia.
Aside from man-made structures, birds' nests can also be collected from caves, though it's trickier and riskier to do so.
We yet to develop the protocol between these two countries on how to export the cave nets to China.
Since we have this most natural product, it's good that we also promote cave nest as one of the alternatives.
So yet another area of untapped potential demand from China for Malaysia's raw bird nest and bird nest products, with trade fairs like CICPE an ideal way to try to fulfill that potential. Ryan Meltzer, CGTN, Kuala Lumpur.
At the ongoing Hainan Expo, we spoke to ambassadors and exhibitors from Ireland, Thailand, and South Korea to get their perspectives on China's high-quality development and what it means for the development of their respective countries. Take a listen.
So this is our third year here in Hainan at the Consumer Products Expo. We're delighted to be back. We've had great success here in the past. We're standing here in front of the Irish Pavilion, and I'm very proud to be here and representing Irish companies.
This is the first time we come in Hainan Expo, and actually we are very proud and excited to stay here because you really can feel around the exhibition a sparkling atmosphere around all people.
Both Thailand and China are RCEP countries. The two countries are committed to make the best out of RCEP. We believe that Hainan Free Trade Port will attract more foreign enterprises to the island and create more growth opportunities.
The Hainan Free Trade Port is currently one of the best places for business in China. The port will help expand cooperation and trade between enterprises from South Korea and Hainan.
Hainan Free Trade Port has been playing an important role in boosting China's high-level opening up. And for more discussions on the same, let's bring back Wang Dan, Chief Economist of Hang Seng Bank China. Well, thank you so much for staying with us. So as a strategic gateway connecting China and Southeast Asia, what role will this free trade port play in promoting regional economic integration?
A free trade port means the free flow of goods and capital. And for Hainan as the base for free trade, it has established a good start because right now we have seen a list of zero tariff goods, and in the future the list can only grow longer. But for the free capital flow, there have been efforts to do more of the pilot experiments, but we do need to see more of the investment in financial infrastructure, including the cross-border e-business settlement, and probably using the central bank digital currency even. So that requires more of the attention to establish the data-heavy type of research facilities. So for Hainan, it's a good opportunity, but it requires tremendous investment and efforts from the government.
As you mentioned, progress on the financial front, will it pave the way for closer cooperation based on local currency settlement?
That's very much true, because for China now, there's an important transition in its trade structure and investment structure. Before, almost all the major production process happened in China, but now China is integrated a lot deeper with its neighbors, especially with ASEAN countries. And that requires a different currency structure when China does its trade. And it also means that many of the foreign companies and domestic Chinese companies are outsourcing more of its work to other countries. And it would require a faster settlement scheme, probably using different currency other than dollars. And it also requires more flexibility in the capital control.
Well, China is making efforts to promote further opening up of its economy. However, there are still challenges globally, and we're seeing more protectionism. And what can be done to further improve the attractiveness of Hainan Free Trade Port and further promote globalization and free trade?
Hainan has already established itself as one of Chinese and also foreign tourists' top destination for vacation. And it has become one of people's favorite destination for shopping as well. It has become an essential activity when people visit there. But to increase its attractiveness, it does need to establish more of a modern lifestyle and provide more of the high-end services, including education and science technology lab services. So right now, we have seen increased amount of enthusiasm to go to Hainan, but the number of talents needed to realize this goal is a lot higher than what we see now. So probably the collaboration between the local Hainan education institutions with universities around the world will be a good way.
And what is your view on this caution that our reporter previously mentioned that European businesses take towards doing business with China in light of the growing tensions between some of the world's major economies?
Some of the geopolitical tensions are inevitable because the countries are getting more localized and protectionist over time. Some of it is due to domestic economic pressure, but some of it is due to the change in economic balance in global trade. So for European countries, China has been one of its major trading partners and one of the biggest consumer market in the world. And for many of their brands, especially the consumer brands, not just luxuries, but just basic food and other household appliances, China will remain to be the biggest opportunity. So they want to establish early and deep into this market.
And the Hainan Free Trade Port is also a gateway into China's massive consumer market. What is your view on China's domestic consumption power, and how should businesses tap into emerging opportunities?
Chinese households are unusually liquid, with about 130 trillion yuan as bank deposits. That's more than 100% of last year's GDP. Much of those money was aiming to buy home, and about 30% of the money was designated for consumption, at least. So when we look at how to motivate Chinese consumers, usually the recreation of market confidence is step one. And for foreign investors, they can certainly see the depth of Chinese consumer market. And with the recovery of domestic economy, even the smaller cities will present very good opportunities for consumer brands from abroad.
And in light of China's efforts to promote high-level opening up and high-quality use of foreign capital, how has the Expo contributed to China's priorities towards innovation and sustainable economy?
Well, there has been some debate and misunderstanding about China's dual circulation model. Some people take it as China's stepping away from globalization or even to be closed from the rest of the world. And Hainan Expo is a good demonstration that this is not the case. China not only wants more investment in China, but also would like to open up its market more for foreign companies and foreign businesses for its long-term investment. This has been an opportunity also for domestic investors. Collaborating with businesses from abroad has always been a way to learn and to establish the knowledge chain. And the knowledge supply chain is just as important as the material supply chain.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. And that was Wang Dan, Chief China Economist of Hang Seng Bank. And before we go, here's a recap of the exciting and fun memories from this year's International Consumer Products Expo. See you next time.
这里皇冠呢叫做永恒之心，主钻石呢达到了30.58克拉。
制作这样一把吉他用的并不是木头，而是树脂和一点点的布纤维。
We want more trading. We want more possibility to import and export.